Welcome to Buckets. I haven't slept at all. My name's Matt Moore, and I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network, coming to you from the Tommy John home studios. I'm so tired. This deadline has almost killed me, but I am powering through because we have more stuff to talk about. Not only to break down the basketball side, but also to give a look at what some future options might be. We're going to talk about some stuff in the market, including I've been getting hit up pretty much constantly about the Dalton Connect stuff and people being like, yay! And me having now to come on the podcast and be like, well, so we'll talk about that and more on today's show. To do it, I have a whole crew with me. I've got Sean Little at Chicago Flow. I've got Bryan Fonseca at Bryan Fonseca MY. Catch his YouTube channel. Brian's doing a whole bunch of cool stuff on YouTube, so you should go do that. Unlike Sean Little, who just does stuff for MSG. That's all he does is MSG and Turner. Big whoop there. But also joining me, I'm dragging him back in is Brandon Anderson. He's done with you're done with your last NFL Best Bets pod for the year, aren't you?
That's right. We just got the wrap up Sunday night after the Super Bowl, and then it's basketball for me, baby.
Okay. All right. I could save you time on that wrap up pod.
Captain Mahomes over here.
I'm still, as a Chiefs fan, I'm still in that. I thought by Wednesday it would turn, but because I haven't slept, all the days have blended together, where I'm still like super confident and like, yeah, I mean, we're going to win. We always win. Come on, we're going for a 3-peat. Like tomorrow at 2 is when the sheer terror will set in. And I'll be like, nope, we're losing. That's it. There's no way. How are we going to stop Saquon? Everyone says that this defensive line is so good, blah, 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 blah. But right now, we're going to talk about basketball because it's been an absolutely insane trade deadline. If the Luka Doncic trade hadn't happened, I'd been like, damn, that was a lot of stuff that happened. And then on top of it, the biggest, dumbest trade in NBA history. I'm either going to do a video or a post. I don't know which one. I'm literally making a list of how many dumb things there are about the Luka Doncic trade. Like, I'm at 18 and we're going to see how far I can get. I'm going to try and see if I can get some people to come on and list them out for me in a video format. See if I can get some special guests.
You got to get to 77 in Luka's honor.
Should I DM Kevin Durant and ask if he'll send me a video of it?
He actually might get back to you.
He might. I've never, in all of our interactions, I've never DM'd the man. Never done. Now I respect his privacy. Because everyone's like, why wouldn't you do that? And I'm like, because we don't have a relationship. There's no relationship there. He just follows me and yells at me sometimes on Twitter.
Well, all right, let's start DM. You can just post on Twitter. He's going to read it anyways and respond.
It's true. All right, let's start here. So on Tuesday night, the Golden State Warriors, got their guy, but they went ahead and did the thing. And this is an interesting one because it's kind of being celebrated a little bit when this was mostly, I think, a marriage of inconvenience. Jimmy Butler was not going to get to Phoenix. They couldn't find nobody would take Bradley Beal's money. This to me is like more illustrative of how bad the CBA is. You could say like, well, it's the no trade clause. No. It's not just that. Usually, even with a no trade clause, you could have figured something out, but there's just no teams that can afford it. They just can't take the money and they can't make the trade. And once Phoenix kind of figured that out and that word got out, that's when you started hearing about the KD stuff. And I'll have more on that later. But ultimately what happens is the Warriors trade Andrew Wiggins, other pieces, and they wind up with Jimmy Butler. They then give him a 2-year, $120 million extension. The Warriors were not sure if they wanted Jimmy Butler. This is widely reported that they talked about him and no. And I think that probably happened. I think Brian asked me before the show, when we were waiting to come on, Brian was like, why was Steph kind of a little bit unsure about this? And my answer was, if you've put up with Draymond Green's bullshit for your entire career, since 2013, you put up with Draymond getting suspended, hitting people in the testicles, fighting with teammates, all of this nonsense. Do you want to add Mr. Radioactive to that concoction? That to me is kind of what it was, is like, there's some part of Steph has to be like, I can handle one crazy. We can't have two crazies, but they're going to have two crazies. I want to start with Bryan Fonseca. and get your reaction to this. I like this Warriors team on paper and the starting unit a little bit more. I have a lot of questions, but I want to get your kind of thoughts on the basketball side of it, and then we can talk kind of the betting market.
Am I wrong to be surprised that they actually traded a pretty good draft pick in this deal? Because I didn't think, given what Jimmy Butler was doing on the way out, that the Heat would get more than maybe a swap. And they actually got a top 10 protected pick that could be a lottery pick this year. It may convey this year the way things are looking. It may not be a lottery pick. Depends if Golden State makes playoffs, but it can be in the teens. Like that's, and in this draft, which is much better than last year's draft, it's actually a good player. Like you're going to get a lottery talent in that range, and that's an organization that knows how to draft. I was surprised that Golden State ended up pulling the trigger, but it told me two things. Told me they were desperate. One, the immediate extension, and two, the first round pick. And I think this is a call from ownership, evidently, because we saw the reporting about, hey, players, they're kind of not sure about this, or some players just don't want it. We saw some reports about that. And to me, this is more like, hey, ownership was kind of like, hey, get this done. Steve Kerr was really emotional about Andrew Wiggins in the sort of, I guess, the goodbye presser, if you want to call it that, talking about his family, talking about his children, talking about how he just had a kid, and having to up and move. And Dennis Schroeder, just getting a house. Now he has to move and all these different things. And, Eric Spoelstra and Steve Kerr, this is a point that Ethan Skolnick makes all the time. They coach together in the Olympics. They've clearly spoken about this. Steve Kerr may or may not have some reservations that I don't know, but I'm sure he does, and he's going to have to figure out how to make this work. And I'm sure that if you look through his call log, there's probably a lot of calls with Eric Spoelstra over the course of, I don't know, the last couple weeks as this has all sort of transpired. I think basketball wise, the Warriors are interesting. This is a Jimmy Butler health bet, and Jimmy Butler health bets get scarier and scarier each passing year. He is 35. I will continue to beat that drum, as much as he's legitimately one of my favorite players to watch throughout the course of his career, because of where he's come from, because of what he's done, what he's accomplished, and, all the things that he's turned himself into despite being homeless at 13, not an AAU guy, play junior college basketball, turn into a D1 guy, turn into a late first round pick, most improved, all these different things, and he'll probably be in the Hall of Fame one day. But this is a time where you get him, and it's riskier than ever. He's in his 14th season. He's post 2 Tom Thibodeau stints and several deep playoff runs over the last however many years it's been. So it's a big gamble. And I actually like the return on paper that the Heat got. It makes them a different type of team that I feel like they need to be. I feel like they needed to be younger, more athletic. And, they could potentially make the playoffs too and be interesting in the first round. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, if you're the Warriors, you don't want another pick. If they wind up with pick 13, they don't need that. That's not where they're at, and they've had to reconcile the fact of we got to go forward with Steph. We got to honor the rest of this guy's legacy. Now, I don't know if this is the best way to go about it. I think tacking on Draymond and Jimmy and Steph, and I'm just gonna this is a really good team in 2019, and now I'm kind of yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. The pick is good. The only question I have Brian is yeah, they use it. But what are the odds that,
Can we go back to the Jimmy Butler's radioactive thing? Because I've been thinking about it ever since it came out of Matt's mouth. Let's go back through Jimmy Butler's entire run. Chicago.
I'm the host, so I will do it.
Okay.
Here's what happened.
You tell me.
Chicago clashed with Joakim Noah. Do you know how much of a motherfucker you have to be to feud with Joakim Noah? Okay. Got too big. The word was, this is what the classic quote that got spread around to every front office was, this is what happens when the mailman becomes CEO. Now, I don't think that's fair. I think Jimmy earned that. Okay. Mm-hmm. They didn't want to pay him. They had reservations. The Bulls are a clown organization. But the problem is that everybody that has any sort of Bulls link, I don't know, if their Twitter handle was Chicago Flow, or if they're wearing a Bulls hoodie, if they were theoretically wearing a Bulls hoodie, they have this attachment in part because they hate their organization. And so anybody that fights with their organization, they're on the side of because they want the organization to go away because Reisdorf's been running that fucking team into the ground for 20 years. All right, so he goes to Minnesota. He goes to Minnesota.
Okay, but are we gonna break down? Are we gonna break down each one about how he's been right every time, or you want to do it at the end?
So here's what I wrote.
It's fair.
Here's the thing. Him being right doesn't. Him being right. The other person. No, here's the best way to put it. This is what I wrote this on. I'll send you the link.
Substack.
The other person being wrong doesn't make him right. It's not a binary. Both sides were wrong in each instance. He goes to Minnesota. Okay, another team whose fans tend to self-immolate quite a bit over things. And what happens? Like, he busts his own teammates' ass in a practice session. Bad. That's horrible that's just shitty leadership. Those guys weren't bucking against him. They looked up to him. He does that in front of him, yelling about pay me, pay me, pay me. He embarrasses Tibbs, who was the guy in Chicago that played him and put faith in him. He does that to them. Then he runs out and does the interview with Rachel. Okay, fine. The Wolves are a clown organization. No. It's just them. It's not Jimmy's fault. He goes to Philly. He busts Brett Brown, a respected guy that worked with Popovich in San Antonio, that sat through all of that garbage that he had to sit through with the process. And he gets through all of that. No. And he bolts and he goes to Miami. He feuds with Eric Spoelstra.
He bolted from Philly?
Yes.
Oh, he ran away from Philly.
Yes.
Well, in each of these, there is some context. Like, there is some
He was going to Miami for months. Everybody knew that.
No, yes, but at the same time, like, there's two things. One, every team he's joined has gotten better, which is sort of the befuddling thing about this. Like, when he joined...
It's not befuddling at all. What's befuddling about it?
I think this is confusing to, like, a lot of people. But, like, to me, it's very simple. He went to Minnesota, they got better. He leave, they got worse. And they just lucked into Anthony Edwards, so they got good again. He left Philly, and they haven't gotten as far since he left, basically.
They were at the same level. They haven't won a second-round series. Still haven't won.
They at least got to a Game 7 with him there, right?
They got to a Game
lost
7
to the champs.
Celtics.
They got embarrassed in that game.
Jimmy Butler got embarrassed versus in both times when he made the finals with his fluke ass.
But he made the finals twice. But he did make the finals twice. And like,
I'm not denying I'm not denying he's good, or he was good. I'm not denying he was good. I'm not denying that.
I guess. So we don't take it and talk 45 minutes about Jimmy. What I'm saying is that he doesn't become radioactive until he looks around at everyone in the room and he goes, "You guys are a bunch of idiots. We're not going to win anything here." And he does whatever he needs to do to get out of town. So I don't like him coming to Golden State. For me, he's not going to be radioactive. Maybe initially, and the runway is not that long. The biggest thing about the whole deal is that him, Draymond, and Steph all expire 27-28. So if the shit doesn't work and things get really bad, they have multiple ways to reset in a relatively short window once these guys get extremely old. But Jimmy doesn't walk around being radioactive and making everything hell for everyone. He went.
Bryan Fonseca, what does Ethan Skolnick? What do you think he thinks about that comment? Have things been hunky dory with Jimmy this whole time?
Well, this is part of it, right? Like, yeah, Miami has he kind of been a pain in the ass for people behind the scenes? Yes. Now that's more so.
It goes beyond that, man. That's my point here. Jimmy Butler makes life miserable.
I want to say. I want to clarify. It's more so, at least up until recently, it has more to do with like the people who work in the organization, staff. Not necessarily like because people are going to think about the basketball team where it's less about that, at least in this instance, at least in this particular instance.
He just completely like fucked with Tyler Heroes and Tyler season after all the shit Tyler's been through, having a great year, and Jimmy's fucking that up. I think
Brandon should get a word in.
Yeah, we haven't gone to Brandon. Brandon, what are your, because you're a Jimmy guy, so I'm curious about your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I mean, I've had the Jimmy Chicago run. I've had the Jimmy Minnesota run. My buddy is a big Philly fan. I was part of that run a little bit. I was out on the Miami thing, but I did enjoy the finals run somewhat. Like, here we are. I got the Warriors basketball over the shoulder. He just keeps following me. I can't get away from the guy. To me, Jimmy Butler is the LeBron player empowerment era without being LeBron. Like, he does all the crap that LeBron gets away with, but isn't actually LeBron. He doesn't get to enough finals and lose when he gets there. He's got to do more of those than he could be LeBron. The Warriors have to do this deal because what are the other options? We literally, all the reports are, we're calling every superstar in the league to see if you're available. Any all-star, you available? We'll take you. Is this going to work? I don't know. Like, why would this possibly work? Steph is not Steph anymore, except like once every 8 games. Butler is only Butler in the playoffs every couple of years. Draymond hasn't been Draymond for a while now. We don't really know. He needs to get like suspended for a while, and then he turns into Draymond again for a while, and then we have to do the thing again. So it shouldn't work. There's like, you need to roll Snake Eyes, and then like whatever other rolly things you could roll. All 3 of them have to come up Snake Eyes all together. But you're already on that with Steph and Draymond. You already need the Snake Eyes combo. It ain't happening with Wiggins, Schroeder, and Kyle Anderson. That's nothing. That is dead weight to the team being able to go anywhere. And it's not happening with that number 13 pick they gave away, because that guy is not contributing to whatever Steph and Draymond are trying to do. And the bridge, the whatever, the past and the future thing, that's over. We tried that. Somehow, I don't know how you still like have Podziemski and Kuminga. Like, everybody's still around. I don't know what the lineup is. I don't know how you play Butler and Draymond together, let alone Kuminga. Like, 3 of their 4 presumed best players, if we're going to pretend Kuminga is good still. There's no spacing. Like, Steph is the ultimate spacing god, and then we have 3 negative spacings. I don't know what the math happens with that. We're going to find out, I guess. Defensively, maybe Butler can still do the thing in the playoffs. Like, very clearly is not what he once was, but maybe for 4 to 6 to 8 weeks, if we're being real optimistic in the playoffs with Draymond. Like, to me, I don't know how it works. I don't think any of us know how it works. The hope is, can these guys do what we have seen Jimmy Butler do, what we have seen other superstars do, which is, can you elevate in the playoffs and make a run? Can you be the player you were 5 years ago for one series? And they now have 2 guys that can win the series if they can do that, rather than 1. And at least that gives you a shot in a West that it certainly looks like people think, these other teams seem to think it is there for the taking. Nobody seems real afraid of the Grizzlies or the Rockets or maybe even the Thunder. So to me, is it a ton of money? Absolutely. Screw the leg ups. Don't care. Pay your money. You're already sunk. Like, they can't do anything with the money. They can't do anything with a pick. I don't know why this would possibly work, but I don't know what else you're going to do. So that, from the Warriors side, that's my thoughts. From the Heat side, as somebody that has also been part of the Andrew Wiggins experience all the way along, I think this is going to go so badly in Miami.
Really?
Wiggins, in whatever Heat culture is there now, I don't know that Heat culture is there. I think Heat culture was Jimmy culture, and I think Heat culture might be dead. Scrape the letters off of the free throw lane. Jimmy's gone. It's time to move on. It's not Bam culture. It's Jimmy culture. It ain't Wiggins culture. I don't know how that's going to fit in. I know that he won the championship. I know that we remember very fondly his contribution to the championship team, because like the last 2 games, he had some offensive rebounds. He was not that great for that team. He should not have been an all-star. He has never been a positive impact player. And if you wonder how Butler to Wiggins goes for your team, we have an example. The Timberwolves did it, and they dropped 11 wins the next year. So the Heat are a bunch of not star players now and not going to be good. And Wiggins, I don't think is going to make it to the end of the contract there, because I just think it's a terrible culture fit.
I mean, the thing is, oh, by the way, here's a fun one. DraftKings. Tuesday, March 25th, the Golden State Warriors visit the Miami Heat.
Yes.
Guess
Can't
the
wait.
line, Brandon.
It's in Miami.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Man. Guessing lines when I've been watching football for 5 months. This is fun. Let's go.
It's not
Golden
6.5.
State. Golden State minus 2.5.
Okay, Sean,
Yeah, I was gonna say 2.5, 3.
Brian, have you looked at it?
I may have.
Okay,
Yeah.
Brian's bet it.
Miami.
No, I haven't.
It's Miami -1.
Yeah. It was
Wow.
1.5 earlier.
Heat, by the way, are 25 and 24, 6th spot in the East, even with Jimmy's nonsense this year. The last thing I'll just say, Sean, my only thing here really is Tom Thibodeau. As much as he runs his guys into the ground, Tom loves this game. He's done it for forever. He's a lifer, and he's got the players' respect. And Jimmy disrespected him and showed him up and did all this bullshit. Spo is unquestionably the best coach in the league. Everyone agrees on that. That's a Hall of Famer. And in his press conference, he's blowing up Eric Spoelstra over his role and stuff. That was a point where, like, Ethan's made this point about, like, that's where he lost a lot of fans. Like, a lot of people were like, you can talk all you want about Pat Riley. Eric Spoelstra's not the one deciding your contract.
Sure.
And I'm sorry, like, he just doesn't respect anybody.
No, it was all Jimmy's fault everywhere he left. But everywhere he left, they got worse, and he was right essentially every single time he went. He went to another team.
He wasn't right. He wasn't right.
I think that he was right, but he was a dick about it. I think that's the distinction Matt is trying to
Correct.
make. I think that he was right, but could have done it differently and should have. We all agree on that part.
And what I'm saying, I'm not saying he wasn't a dick to get out, but he wasn't a dick until he wanted to get out, and he was right about the reasons he wanted to leave.
You're being fed that because nobody talks about it when they're winning, but all that stuff is still there. And that's been a consistent thread. And Brian knows what I'm talking about.
The stuff, yeah, because it really started coming around either during or shortly after. I want to say during the 2023 playoff run, probably, but where it was kind of like...
when I heard about it, I was in Miami and was surprised that
we talked
instead
about
of it being like, yeah, man, he fits in here and everyone loves him and he's like our guy and he just gets it. Everybody's like, no, I mean... he's really good, so you
deal with it.
You live with it.
That's what it is. But I think you can. There's even more nuance to this because I could say he's right about Chicago because look at them since. Again, Minnesota lucks into Anthony Edwards. Otherwise,
I mean, even the Philly piece. We know what happened when they picked.
I think
they picked
in this
they
instance,
picked him
though,
bleep before me. Like, there's a lot. I mean, look, I don't know. To be frank, I don't know exactly what you guys are talking about with the behind the scenes stuff and other staff and stuff in Miami, but he gave everything to Miami on the floor. They overachieved, and then they started jerking him around. So guess what? Dickhead Jimmy shows up. Get me out of here.
Well, Matt, I will say that though. Like, here's the thing: if Pat, he obviously didn't like that Pat Riley went at him in the presser, and Jimmy, while he didn't like that part, Pat Riley didn't like that Jimmy, was saying, despite being out, hey, I would have, if I were there, we would have beat them.
Yeah, they pushed each other. Yeah, they absolutely.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing I want to say: if the Heat, because they never want to bottom out, they always want to remain competitive. They always want to remain above water, and they feel like they can get their next star. So, okay, if you want to remain competitive, why didn't you just give him the extension?
Yeah,
like that. That's where, to me, this all could have been avoided, or trade him during the summer, which is what I was saying. Like, yo, the way this was going, and this always comes at a time too where someone else gets the money, i.e., like Andrew Wiggins, Karl Anthony Towns is paid. Why aren't I taken care of? Or in Philly, Tobias Harris gets his deal, Ben Simmons gets his deal. Two dudes that he doesn't respect like that. And then it's like, why aren't I getting mine? And then here, Bam Adebayo gets his deal like on draft day or around draft day, around the time Pat Riley has the presser, and Jimmy doesn't get his.
If they just do the right thing and trade him last deadline, they get a monster haul for him, and it works out much better. Like, the real key
and he doesn't act the way he did to get out of town.
No, he
He
just
just
does it for
does what he
somebody else.
needs
He
to
just
do.
does it for the next team that he deals with. Sean, I'll bet you at dinner that we wind up with a dispute with them with him in Golden State too.
Sure, but I guess what I'm saying is you were talking as if he's going to walk into the Golden State locker room and throw Draymond shit on the ground and say, "Hey, this is my team now," and smack Steph Curry in the face. And then he was like, he's going to go in there. Everything's going to be hunky dory. Maybe until it isn't, I guess is what I'm getting at. He's not radioactive until a couple chips start to fall. Then it's like, all right, this isn't what either I was promised it was going to be or what I thought it was going to be, and now maybe it's time to get out of town. That's why I think and Brandon said it right. What else were they going to do? And as I mentioned, they're all unrestricted in 27, 28. They have an exit route if this shit really goes south. And it's not that far down the road.
I have a yes or no for the panel here. Brandon, I know how big you are on the Lakers. We're going to talk about them in a sec. Currently, division odds: Lakers -200, -210 at FanDuel. Warriors are all the way. There's a 2,500 at DraftKings for the division. There's 6 back in the loss column, 30-ish games to go. I know you're high on the Luka thing because Luka, but from a pure numbers perspective, does Warriors 2,500 to win this division, which is vulnerable in a lot of ways? Does that interest you at all? Yes, no?
No, not in the I want nothing in the regular season on this team.
That's probably smart because of
agree.
We don't know if they're going to play.
I agree.
Like Jimmy may just not play, and then Sean will be like, "Well, what do you expect from him? You can't expect him to actually play." Sean, do you want Warriors 2,500 or not?
No, I'm not interested. I think Brandon's right. The regular season is gonna be a grind to close out and see where they land on that Western side.
Brian?
No, I'm good. I want to see. First of all, I got to see if they make it to the playoffs. But I'd be interested to see who they'd play in the first round or in the play-in for that.
I want to transition here to the Lakers. We were going to talk about Hunter's a bigger deal, but we're going to talk about him third.
Wait, I got a quick follow-up.
Oh yeah,
top 5 percentile outcome, whatever you imagine that to be for this Warriors roster. Let's call it for this year and next year. Top 5 percentile outcome. Can they win a playoff series, and how far can they go in your top 5 percentile? Matt, how far do they go?
Lose in the finals, get swept in the finals. That's their peak.
Sean, what do you think?
Man, for a radioactive fellow, that's a high peak. For an old radioactive guy,
Sean, yes
that's
or no?
pretty high. Because I was going to say maybe the second round of the playoffs, they would get knocked out. So Matt's higher on my guy Jimmy than me.
The basketball side, we haven't talked about the basketball side. I'm actually really interested in it because Jimmy's such a good playmaker. I'm going to be interested in assist props for Jimmy. It's Draymond and Jimmy as dual playmakers, and it's like, well, they can't spread the floor. No, but they can definitely run split action inverted pick and rolls and get cuts and cuts and cuts. Like they will find so many smart passes inside that offense. And then when you do that, that defense is going to have to start being like, we got to account for this. Like, we're just going to have to send help. Which if you can pack it with Hield and Curry, Hield to me is like the leverage point. If Buddy can play, if he can play at this level, you got enough spacing. Buddy's down to 36% from 3 this year. He's not. It's kind of looking like he's another guy that just maybe isn't made for Warriors ball. But like that to me is kind of the pivot area on this. Brian, how far do you think they can go? That's a great question by Brandon.
I would say I think the top 5 percentile version of it is like conference finals, but next year, not this season. Okay. I think this season the roster is too distorted. They need to like refine that roster a little bit more.
My thing is just like the West is. I am of the opinion that it's not that the West is mid. They're all very good with huge weaknesses. Yeah, and they can all fall apart. So
they're also going to be super matchup.
I have appropriate respect for what Jimmy Butler is capable of. I've seen him do it. If you told me that they were playing the Milwaukee Bucks, I'd be like, oh, 100%, they're going to win that series. Jimmy Butler's fucking Jordan anytime he sees Milwaukee green. But it's the range of outcomes is pretty wide. Let's talk Lakers, who after trading for Luka Doncic because Nico Harrison is buddies with Rob Pelinka for 20 years. Side note, I'm writing a column on this. You can't hire anyone with Laker ties ever again. I mean, even the most vague ones. If he owned a home in Los Angeles, you can't do it. You cannot do it anymore.
That's a problem in the
the
NBA. A lot of dudes in the NBA.
I
From
know.
LA.
That's really narrow down your options. But after doing that, they go out and they looked at Valanciunas and decided to move away from that. They looked at Capella. They looked at Nick Claxton. They looked at a number of guys, but what they found was that the Hornets were willing to go ahead and sell on Mark Williams. This is really interesting to me because I had heard that Mark Williams was literally an untouchable player this last summer. That they were like, it's Brandon Miller and Mark Williams, and that's what we're going forward with. And something has shifted where Charlotte decided that the draft compensation, which was good, they got good picks here from the Lakers. There probably won't be good picks, but it's really good value return if you look at the entire thing that they got here. It's pretty good for Charlotte. They had Mark Williams. So now Luka's got a pick and roll big man. Charlotte folks that I talk to are frustrated because of the way that this is being described, because everybody's like, an athletic, rim running big. And they're like, Mark Williams hasn't jogged once this season. In part because he's coming back from a number of back injuries, which has been a real problem. Brandon, you were the highest of us on the Lakers. You gave out a best bet on the Lakers to win the West after the Luka trade, based purely on principle. LeBron's playing with Luka. They're winning the Western Conference. I will ask you, what do you think of the Mark Williams addition in the immediate for this team?
Yeah, so my immediate reaction, I was like, man, that's a lot for Mark Williams. That is a steep price for a dude that plays like 40 games a season, and for a guy that has not been great defensively, has not had help defensively, but is not going to have a lot of help in Los Angeles right now defensively either. Like, clearly, this is a guy that's going to work offensively with Luka. Very obviously, it can work. That we know that. Part of the point of having Luka is to not trade 2 picks and young players to go get Mark Williams. The point is to turn Gafford and Lively into the god at center that he turned them into in Dallas. Like, you don't trade for that. You get the cheap version, and then Luka turns them into that. So at first I was like, man, that's a lot. Then I was like, well, but they should have had the 2031 pick anyway. Should have been in the Luka trade. And they should have had Dalton Connect anyway. Should have been in the Luka trade. So if you just combine the 2 trades together, and that's like, all right, Mark Williams is just a freebie. He got thrown in with the rest. They just got rid of their extra stuff. So I do think that. And 2, initially, the shock value of, oh, they got that Lakers 2031 pick. Wow, what a great pick. Well, not anymore, because now it's just during Luka's prime, and they're going to, like, now they're back to being the Lakers again.
Yeah.
So I do wonder, I was just thinking as you're asking that, I understand time doesn't work this way, but imagine if you had like 4 days ago or whatever, the day before the Luka trade, if the Lakers shopped around and said, hey, teams, Dalton Connect and our 2031, you know what? Unprotected. You can have the pick. We want a center. We need Anthony Davis to get a center to protect him. He doesn't want to play center. We need a center. They could have gotten someone so much better than Mark Williams if they had just gambled and done this before, when people thought the pick was still the 2031 Lakers golden pick. And so I think, too, we have to treat that accordingly. Like, these picks and pick swaps are not nearly as valuable as we have thought they were going to be for the 3 years we've been waiting for them to finally trade them. Mm-hmm. And the reality is, Dalton Connect's 25. He's older than Mark Williams. It's not like he's like a young new piece for the Hornets. He's fine. He's depth, but I don't think he's a big loss to what this team is. The bench is terrible. I don't know what the bench is going to be. I hope Hachimura will be willing to come off the bench because they need some scoring and something there, and start Dorian Finney-Smith. I think that makes a lot more sense to me. I understand Jackson Hayes has not been good at basketball. I really feel like I might have rather found out if Luka could turn Jackson Hayes good at basketball and kind of see what he would be with him, because I'm not positive that you couldn't have gotten like 75% of Mark Williams out of Jackson plus Luka, and then you don't have to trade all the picks. So I guess 2 things full circle and I'm done. Number 1, I think the Lakers, similar to what we just said about the Warriors, because the West feels so, again, not bad, just even and matchup oriented, and you're still going to have the best or 2 best players in any game in any series in most cases, I think the Lakers are a threat to make the finals. and probably lose when they got there, depending on who they played along the way. I think Mark Williams certainly helps them and is better than what they were before. I think that there isn't a cost to losing what they gave up for him because it shouldn't have been there anyways. It should have been the Luka deal. But there is a cost. It was their last bullets, and they're out of stuff now. Like, they don't have any more young guys, any more picks. The picks may not be valuable, but they're gone now anyway. So this is it. They have to hope he's healthy. I like my Lakers ticket better now, 2,100 to whatever it's down to. And I still think this, if you had to pick Lakers versus fill in the blank for a series, if it's not the Thunder and it's not the Celtics, are you taking anybody else right now against the Lakers? I don't know. I'm at least listening to the argument. Matt, you're shaking your head. Yes. Who are the teams you're taking right now over the Lakers?
I would absolutely take Denver. 100% I would take Denver. No questions asked. I would
fair.
absolutely take Denver.
I'll give you Denver.
Grizzlies, I wouldn't. Rockets, I wouldn't. Clippers would be interesting if they got Kawhi, but we never know. Wolves would be interesting.
Cavs? You take the Cavs?
Cavs.
I realize we're on conference.
No. Cavs and Knicks, like those teams are. If we're in the finals, that's a whole other. Cavs and Knicks are well above where the Lakers are. I'll say this. This is my only comment on this one. Mark Williams has to play drop. He can't switch. He's not quick enough. Yeah. You have to play drop with him. You have Austin Reeves and Luka Doncic trying to get over screens. You get to pick if you're an opposing ball handler. Do you want Luka or Austin Reeves in a pick and roll with Mark Williams and drop? Yes. They might be able to score, but defense is going to be ugly in this game. Sean, what do you think? Hopefully you were not still mad at me for...
No, never mad. Always great conversation talking ball with you guys. I like the deal. Something tells me Mark Williams' effort will somehow just magically pick up when he lands in Los Angeles. I don't know about you guys. Something about that gold jersey, that effort will start to pick up, and he magically will start playing more games. So it's just a different animal when you're like, you go back. If you go back the last couple games, Anthony Davis absolutely destroyed Williams not too long ago. Jonas Valanciunas was killing Mark Williams on the Wizards like last week. That stuff's not going to happen, at least on the effort side, that in Los Angeles like it was happening in Charlotte. I didn't really think about what Brandon was saying about making Jackson Hayes via Luka into maybe a better player than we know of. Very possible because, of course, Luka elevates guys. But I think overall for the package, Dalton Knecht was never going to see the Rock anyway. We can talk about if Austin Reeves is going to get moved or what have you, but they needed a big, they needed a young guy. Pelinka says the back is fine. I'm not even sure what back injury you guys are talking about. Back, Mark, I don't know anything about that. He said Mark's back is okay. He's not worried about that long term. So just like all these other deals, I'm excited to see it on the floor. And we know via Russell Westbrook and a lot of other guys, if you show up to LA lollygagging and bullshitting on national TV, the fans will boo you. You will get packed up and you will either have to go somewhere else or you'll find yourself being hated by fans. You'll be talked about badly in the Twitter sphere and on the media, and it's not a good look. So I think Mark Williams will show up and be good. And when he's on the floor, the classic when he plays and shows effort, he's damn good. That's a big point for Mark Williams. He's been awesome in a lot of stretches.
I'm with you on the Lakers effect will get to him, but that's the whole thing is like, if that doesn't happen, they're in trouble, but it'll probably be fine because it's the Lakers and they just can't not be fine, apparently. Fonseca, real quick on this one, what do you think?
I like, can I just shout out what Charlotte's doing? I mean, just real quick. Like, I gotta say, getting a first for Terry Rozier, draft capital for PJ Washington, draft capital in this deal. You know what I mean? Like, I thought they were going to be good. Not good. I thought they were going to be okay this year. And I had their over, and it started off well. And then everybody got hurt. And there goes that. So next year, We're going to be back on the Hornets because I actually think they're functioning well as an organization. Okay. And they have a good coach. But with Mark Williams, I mean, it's a gamble, but like I feel like Luka is gonna make it work. LeBron also, but Luka like long term. Um, I think this is a spot for the Lakers though, where I mean, we've talked about the playoffs being matchup dependent. Right now, if the playoffs started, they would get the Rockets in round one. In the 5-4 spot, they'd be the 5, and I feel like all of us would be looking at the Lakers like, yeah, I mean, are you going to take Fred VanVleet and Amen Thompson, all due respect, over LeBron James, Luka Doncic in round one of the playoffs? And Austin Reeves, who LeBron has deferred to in the past in the playoffs in big spots because Austin Reeves can get creative with the ball too. Like, I think their offense could really be a juggernaut. I think their defense is going to be the exact opposite of that. It's going to be the issue. But I think their offense can win out and at least get them a series. Like, I feel better than if we're going to compare them with Golden State, for example, who we just talked about. I feel better about the Lakers because I know what the Lakers are going to be. And they also have LeBron and Luka. And with Golden State, I just have more questions about how that's going to fit, what that's going to look like, what their young guys are going to do in the playoffs. Whereas with the Lakers, like, yeah, they're pretty top heavy now. And I don't love their depth, but I like their starting 5. Like, especially if Dorian Finney-Smith is in that 4 spot, or whatever, whoever gets what position. But if Dorian Finney-Smith is the 5th guy with Luka, with Austin Reeves, LeBron James, and Mark Williams, I like that a lot. With Rui Hachimura coming off the bench, Gabe Vincent's actually been playing better as of late too, which is not a small thing given he's had some playoff moments before. Listen, man, you got to get depth where you can get it with LA because they ain't got much. So shout out to Gabe Vincent. But yeah, I like. I think if they were to play against Denver, I think Nikola Jokic is going to make Mark Williams' life a living hell. But
he makes everybody's life. I'm so tired of people saying that about and putting Jokic's name in. Fucking, he's making Wilt Chamberlain's life hell. He's making Kareem's life hell. He's making everybody's life hell. So, like, that's a default. Jokic is gonna kill Mark Williams. No,
he's gonna average. Like, he's gonna average
everybody.
He's gonna average everything. Is the point? But like, if the Lakers get Memphis somehow in the first round, which would not be the case right now, but if the Lakers get Memphis in the first round, like, I'm kind of looking at the Lakers like, oh, they could get this one. Like, I feel good about them. Like, yeah, you know? I think they can get. Like, I probably picked them to beat anybody in the first round series outside of the Thunder and maybe Denver.
Here's the thing: I have all these concerns about their basketball side. If it's Memphis 2, Houston 3, Lakers 6, Lakers are coming out of that side of the bracket.
We just watched that bracket 2 years ago. Like, we saw that happen. That's the thing. That's the case for the Lakers and the Warriors. We saw both of them play in the second round in that spot. So, Matt, you know, when we do, like, before the season, the projection thing, I project, okay, rank you offense 1 to 30, defense 1 to 30. I think this Lakers team, like, from here forward, I project them at number 3 offense, number 20 defense. I think that's a little optimistic defensively, to be honest. But number 3 offense, number 20 defense, here's what that is. That's the Denver Nuggets right now. Yep. Or last year, that's the Bucks, or that's the Clippers. What that tells me is you're not the title favorite, but you could win the title. You can absolutely win the title. If you are the Nuggets this year or the Bucks, the Clippers last year, you're going to need to upset someone, and you're going to need someone else to upset somebody. Okay. But you can win the title.
Give me LeBron, Dylan Brooks part 2 with Luka now involved.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, God. You got to burn Toyota Center to the ground. I will just say, I have some tickets on Celtics Lakers from months ago. Not because of this, just because I was like, this is how the NBA works. I was like, it just like winds up. I think I've just decided I'm going to bet Celtics Lakers every year because there's a good chance. I will give a 30-second breakdown of Dalton Connect, because if you've been with us on the Sunday show, we found that bet, Dalton Connect. It's the first time that Joe Delera was like, I like your bet better than mine. It was like such a I was so happy.
They told me you were real happy.
And everyone's like, hey, looking great. He's down to 12-1. He's going to play a ton in Charlotte. And I was like, yeah, but no one's going to watch him.
Right.
Like,
that's
the whole thing. The whole thing was people will watch the Lakers because they're on national TV 700 times. like Mark Williams' most improved player is now the play because everybody's gonna be like, oh my god. So the Dalton Connect's going to be a delicious CLV sandwich as he has gone from 200 to 1 to 12 to 1 in the market. Num. I'm not. There's no way that this gets home for me with him and Charlotte. I actually like the bet less now, but that does mean we'll have a chance to go some other directions. Khalil Ware is still at the top of the. We'll talk about that on Sunday.
Yeah, that surprises me.
We'll do one more because it's really the last like major trade. Clippers Bogdanovich is like a really nice move. I don't think it moves the needle for the championship. I don't think you can get to any of the other like small moves and really kind of look at them and be like, oh my god. Well, we'll do two because we gotta get the Fox too. But I want to do DeAndre Hunter to the Cavs. This was it's Karis LeVert, who I'm just like heartbroken for. Karis had made like a home in Cleveland. He has been there for the entire time they built themselves up. He gets Kenny Atkinson finally. Karis has been so solid. He's busted his ass defensively. He's gotten so much better as a passer. He was like a gunner when he was in Brooklyn. That's all he was. Like he was just like a pull-up, mid-range, 3-level bucket getter. And he turned himself into a complete player in Cleveland. And I've been like so happy for him to be part of the success. So that sucks. You have to make this deal. You get rid of George Niang, who makes a series of boneheaded plays. You add DeAndre Hunter, a pure 3-and-D player with great athleticism and a little bit of bounce off the dribble. The big thing has been Garland, Mitchell, Mobley, Allen. Who's that fifth guy? Because 2 years ago, when JB Bickerstaff cost me a lot of money in that Knicks series, it was no. I can't trust Isaac Okoro. I'm gonna play. Oh, who is the Turkish dude? I've forgotten his name.
Cedi Osman?
Yeah, it was Chetty. No. We gotta have Chetty out there. You gotta feel like you can trust that fifth guy. They can trust Hunter. I don't think that this is like a reason to suddenly bet the Cavaliers because I still don't think they can keep the Celtics from shooting enough threes. One guy doesn't change that. There was like clips today of like, here's Jason Tatum cooking DeAndre Hunter. And I'm like, if Jason Tatum tries to put this team on his back and go ISO, the Cavaliers are in a much better shape even if he's cooking DeAndre Hunter. Sean, you get first crack on this one. What do you think about DeAndre Hunter add to the Cavaliers? How much better are they after this move?
I absolutely love this move. This is probably, when we're talking about actually like teams that can compete, this is right behind Luka going to LA. I love DeAndre Hunter. I love his game. I love what he's going to add to the Cavaliers. Everybody should pay attention, man. If you're not stockpiling picks, you better stockpile depth because when some shit comes up, you can move it and improve your team when you can actually contend. So that's exactly what the Cavs were doing. We were talking about how deep they were. They give up two guys that were playing for one, but DeAndre Hunter is better than both of these guys, and I don't even think we've seen the best of DeAndre Hunter yet. You're playing a guy. You're playing with a guy in Trae Young that we know is not easy to deal with. He's throwing the ball out of bounds. Half the time, he's not picking up an assist. Right? He's clearly he was playing with the Dyson Daniels and Jalen Zion. There's a bunch of wings over there. He's coming off the bench. He seemed to be okay with his role, but when he came on the floor, he was so impactful. I saw him about 10 days ago, maybe 2 weeks ago in the Garden against the Knicks. He was absolutely awesome, and he's been awesome for a long time. I'm shocked a lot of people weren't on the phone trying to get Hunter if he was available, and he goes to, for me, probably the most scary team in the East. I'm more scared of Cleveland than I am Boston right now.
That's a take. Bryan Fonseca, what do you think?
I mean, in the conference where you have Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, I feel like Cleveland needed a wing. I don't think DeAndre Hunter is any of those guys, but the way he's been playing this season, I mean, can he be for a series like on par with like a Mikal Bridges? Like that's not crazy to me. OG Anunoby, he's not from a defensive standpoint, but on offense, like, and Knicks fans, when we were doing live on New York Post Sports account earlier, the Knicks trade deadline show, a lot of Knicks fans were like, yo, DeAndre Hunter kills us. We hate this. Like DeAndre Hunter he's killed everybody this year because he's having his breakout season this year, and we'll see how much of it carries over. The thing is, I don't think he's going to have to be averaging 19, 20 points a game. He just needs to continue to shoot efficiently. But Now you have like a wing who could play at a reasonably high level, like a high level role player, we'll call him, to complement, and who's going to complement well, I think, the core four in Cleveland, who can space, who can catch and shoot, who is big, who has size for the wing spot. Like these are things that they needed. He's just a better shooter than Karis LeVert. And the things you said about Karis LeVert, like I echo that also. And I imagine not the easiest thing in the world for Kenny Atkinson, who was there for the start of Karis LeVert in the NBA. They were together in Brooklyn. They've been together in Cleveland this season. So I don't think that was easy also. But I mean, it kind of had to be done. So I think in a conference at the top of the conference where you need wings, they needed at least somebody who's like considered a good wing right now. So I think DeAndre Hunter fills that requirement. And I think in the playoffs, like I respect the Cavs probably more than most. There are still some people who think that they're fraudulent. I think they could legitimately win it all. I'm not saying that just because of this move. I think this move helps that. It's not to say that I would pick them definitively to beat Boston, but that's a series where I'm not necessarily sure that Boston's just going to run away with that the way some other people think.
Yeah, Brandon, really quick before I kick it to you, it's a little different too now that you're going to a contender and you're now going to be a guy that's supposed to fill some holes and answer some questions for a team that's going to be 1-2 in the East, rather than coming off the bench in Atlanta, playing second units and kind of doing whatever you wanted against them. It's a little bit of different dynamic. We'll see if DeAndre Hunter is up for it.
Well, and the thing too is we've actually seen that. We saw it in March Madness. He was in that role as the role player guy, and he won a championship with Ty Jerome, who he's going to team up with again now. So we've seen that version of DeAndre Hunter, the ramp down, not gunning for 20 off the bench version. That's the version that got him drafted so high in the first place. We've seen that version. I'm not convinced that that version is coming to the Cavs. I don't like this trade for them, actually. I thought Cleveland, a couple of years ago, when they traded for Karis LeVert, I did not like that move. They way overpaid for him. They way overpaid his contract. They've been chasing this magical wing that they need, that they clearly need. And look, maybe they just have to do the deal because you guys are right about the Knicks wings and the Celtics wings, and maybe just need a guy. But that they chased after LeVert, and he's never really been what they needed. And I think they're still chasing, and I think they're still not getting what they actually needed. Hunter is injury prone. He has a long injury history. He's never stayed healthy in the NBA. He's also supposed to be this good defender. He's not really been a good defender in the NBA. He's not been a terrible defender. He's not a traffic cone, but he's definitely not a wing defender. Like, he's not a point of attack guy. He to me is very just a guy. And what I see is you've given up more stuff. You gave up Niang, who has not been great, but is depth. Who's your other big man depth now? I don't know who it is. I think you now have less depth, more injury-prone guys, which has been a thing for Cleveland anyway. Matt, I'm surprised you like it this much because it has to mean less Dean Wade, and we know how good all the plus-minus Dean Wade, all the lineups and everything, we know how that goes. To me, every year we can come on the podcast after the trade deadline and say, who won the trade deadline? The answer is Celtics and the Thunder, because they didn't do anything, because they're good enough. They had to do nothing at all. They just sat on their hands and were awesome, because if you're good enough, you don't have to make a big move. This, to me, is the Cavs admitting they're not a real title contender. They made the big move because they're not good enough, and I think that we saw the Grizzlies make a big move today by trading away Marcus Smart to just try to save some money. To me, the Thunder and the Celtics are the winners, because the winners are always just the teams that were good anyway that didn't have to play the trade deadline game. The Thunder get Chet. That's the trade deadline winner. I think the Cavs are a loser. I don't like this move for them.
And this is why you have to subscribe to the Action Network YouTube page, because Brandon Anderson, I didn't know was going to wear a George Niang jersey. He currently is under his sweater. He has a George Niang jersey on, and that's why you have to subscribe to the YouTube page.
DeAndre's been a little bit more available this season. He's 37 of he's missed some time. He had one stretch, but other than that, he's been pretty consistent. He's been much better defensively. I get where you're at and like looking at things. A lot of it's like the Hawks actually are not completely garbage defensively, and that doesn't make a lot of sense, and the numbers aren't really reflecting it. It's like you gotta look at very specific stretches without certain people on the floor, and so I think there's potential here. But you look, this might be the Antoine Jameson move, right? Like 2009 Cavs make the big move for Antoine Jameson, and it's like, hey, they got the name, and then it's like, yeah, he's just like a guy, and he doesn't wind up helping at all. I'm not I'm like halfway in between Brandon and Brian, where I like the Celtics more based off of this and like need them to keep losing because we're gonna get better numbers on them. I'm still in very much a position of like if the Magic had done anything offensively, I would have felt differently. But like I just don't think anybody can stop. I don't think the good offensive teams can stop Boston, and I don't think the good defensive teams can score with them.
Well,
Brian?
while nobody was looking, the Celtics made a move that I like very much and just scooping up Torrey Craig out of nowhere.
Yeah, that was good.
Which,
That's pretty good.
you know,
I didn't
like,
see
which
that.
I was like,
Yeah.
oh, you know, cool. You got DeAndre Hunter. We'll get Torrey Craig, who can potentially be like a discount version of that. And
Yeah,
we'll only play him a certain amount of minutes.
We don't have
No, get the Bulls boost.
That is, we don't have to play Sam Hauser. Now we can just play Torrey Craig. Like that's
Torrey Craig, who I believe was made the honorable mentions on Matt's Elite 100 a couple years ago.
He did.
That's the caliber
Really?
player bringing into the Celtics.
Wow.
He did. He
Didn't
was
know
good.
that.
Yeah, he was
He's
good.
been a
He was
good
really
he's-
important on their playoff run.
He's been a good 3-point shooter for 3 seasons, legitimately, and he could defend
Right.
multiple positions. So.
Last one, we'll do this real quickly, just because like it's getting late. Brandon, I'll go to you first. You're captain. You went from the Wemby skeptic to captain of the boat of Wemby. They pick up Fox. He's phenomenal last night in the debut. Okay, I'll flip the question back to you. How far do you think the San Antonio Spurs can go with De'Aaron Fox added to this roster?
I think this year, not so far. I think this year the goal is make the playoffs, the actual playoffs, not just a play-in. So hopefully you get out of the 7 to 10, or at least win your way out of it. I think that is the ultimate goal. I don't think you're winning a playoff series this year, which means now you're not having Chris Paul on the roster and you're looking bigger picture long term. Bigger picture, I love it for them. I don't feel like they gave up a whole lot here, especially considering the sort of deals that you usually would pay to get a point guard basically in his prime right now. Like look at the DeJounte Murray deal that they gave out the other way, and what they got, I think, a better player back, a better fitting player back with Wemby. And to me, the key is I've not been high on Fox the last couple of years, but coming out of Sacramento and coming out of playing with Sabonis and with DeMar in particular, who I think most of us agree do not make these other players look better just by nature of how they're going to have a lot of the ball and the way they're going to play together. To go from that to what I hope is this high flying, fast, up tempo, running with Wemby, throwing lobs, playing fast, learning from CP at least the rest of the season. To me, trading for Fox what he's been, not really that exciting. Good step, nice direction. But I think Fox could be something entirely different. I think it could be the way people have talked about him, the way he's played at times, like when he won the Clutch Player Award, deserved it. I think he could be more of that now, and that this could actually be like the pairing in San Antonio going forward. So I'm not buying any futures on like Spurs West or anything like that. I think I saw they're like 4 or 5 to 1 to make the playoffs. Even that is a tough sell right now because the West is deep and loaded. I don't like what the Kings did, but like they're still a playoff team probably with their veterans. There's just a lot of teams. Like to make the playoffs, you need the Kings to go out. You need one of the Warriors or Lakers to go out. Like there are paths, but it's going to be a tough road. I can't invest more because I'm already invested from before the season, and it's not a great position right now. I certainly like the position better. I don't get really credit for it if Fox is who gets me there, but I like it. I like where they're going. I think it is a long-term thing. I don't think we're going to see too much fruit from it yet this season.
I'm trying to figure them out. I like them more than their record. I think that they're a little bit better than their record. Plus 390 is there's a number in the market for them to make the playoffs. I think it's a pretty good number. I still haven't pulled the trigger on it. I've been talking about it since the trades, but like I haven't been able to get myself to kind of get there. San Antonio right now, 17th in offense, 15th in defense, schedule adjusted at dunks and threes. The defense will probably improve just because they moved Zach Collins and his minutes were atrocious, and just not playing Zach Collins is probably going to get him better. It's not Zach's fault. It wasn't working. And then, that offense 17 should go up specifically with Fox, and he's not a drag on the defense. So yeah, like I think I might be in on them. Brian, let's let you go next, and then we'll have Sean get the last word.
I hope they at least make the play in, and I think they will. I think they'll sneak in there. I don't know if they're gonna end up making the playoffs, but I agree. I feel like they're better than their record says. And with this trade in particular, I was surprised. Like they didn't give up Vassell, Even Keldon Johnson, obviously Castle stayed, Jeremy Sohan. They didn't give up Champagne, like Malachi Branham. Like they didn't give up anything. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I like Trey Jones, all due respect, but I mean he wasn't going to make sense there with Chris Paul and then De'Aaron Fox, coming over. And I agree with Brandon. Like this is more about the future. That's clear. Like you're going to sign De'Aaron Fox to an extension, and you have Victor Wembanyama, still on a rookie scale contract, which is terrifying. So somebody has to get a lot of money in doing this, and it also positions them just from a salary standpoint. Like you have Devin Vassell and Keldon Johnson on these long-term deals that you can combine them and like actually get another really good player in the door. Like there are a lot of different things you could do because you gave up nothing. You still have Harrison Barnes is making 19 million next season. You have Keldon Johnson 17.5 next year. You have Devin Vassell at 27 next year. You have Jeremy Sohan at 7 next year. Like you can actually go shopping with some of these dudes now that you got De'Aaron Fox and
Castle
still able to.
Yep.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I think Castle you should try to keep. But if you just look at this, man, like the Spurs next year, that's a team I'm going to be really interested in, especially because I think they should do something this summer. But I think this year it's about playing it out, see how far they can get. I'd be very curious to see, like, what if we get Warriors Spurs in the play-in? You know what I mean? At the 9-10, which is totally like feasible. I don't know which way I'd go there. I wouldn't be surprised if, because the Suns are the team to me, because somebody has to fall out if you're going to get in. The Suns are at 10, the Kings are at 9, and those are the two teams I'm looking at. Like they could slide a little bit here, making way for like the Warriors and the Spurs to take those spots. So that's kind of what I'm looking forward to. And we'll see if the Spurs can make it to at least the play-in, because I think they'd be a lot of fun to watch in a 1-game sample.
Yeah.
So the other thing with the Spurs too is, don't forget, they still have 3 unprotected Hawks picks just sitting there waiting out on the DeJounte trade still. So like, if I don't know if San Antonio has it in them, but you mentioned the Keldon contract is very tradable. Harrison Barnes is near the end of the contract. Put those together and you got money for like a real player, and you could trade all your Spurs picks because they're going to get less and less valuable because Wemby is going to start winning more and more games. So you unload the Spurs picks, 3-4 of them. You still got Hawks picks to fill in the gap, and you bring in, and you suddenly have Wemby as your number 1 guy. You go get number 2. Fox is 3, and now Fox is an awesome 3. Castle is like the Rajon Rondo coming up on the team, right? Like the young guy with all the other better players. They could go get that other guy, and they don't have to get a number 1 guy. That's still Wemby. Like you don't have too many opportunities here to slot in a 2 or 3 Fox type player. You need someone on the wing. So we just talked about how Cleveland hasn't been able to solve that, but all the picks that they have and the salaries, I hope that they're willing to gamble and make a big move. It's not yet, but it's coming, I hope.
Yeah, I retweet everything the fella said. I think it was very well laid out, and we can keep it that way. I thought it was interesting that Fox and Chris Paul in the first game almost both had double-digit assists. That was fun, but they were playing Atlanta, so that game's always going to be wide open. We'll see how that looks moving forward, but the future for the Spurs, they're starting to – this was the initial like, all right, we're going to put this Wemby next decade into motion, and it's a great start.
Wemby MVP next year, Brandon. That's that year.
Oh man, I think we're 1 year early, but it was exciting to me to see within like 2 or 3 days of each other, maybe even on the same day, the Spurs were like, it's Wemby time. We're making the move. Right as the Indiana Fever were like, it's Caitlin time. We're making the move. Like both young franchises around their superstar player are like, okay, we're not screwing around anymore. We can actually go win now. And it to me, to have like the bright, young, awesome superstar future of the league and have their teams be like, all right, small market team, we're paying up, we're going for the big move now, was very exciting to me just as a basketball fan.
And Fox mentioned he wanted to go there too. Like
I actually made that same
comparison.
I actually made that same comparison earlier this week with Caitlin Clark and Victor Wembanyama, because it feels like, I mean, both organizations are like, hey, we have something generational here, and it's happening now, and we need to move fast. And the Fever, similarly, I feel like they could actually compete for a title seriously this year, and the Spurs, I think, are going to get there next year. In the summer of 2025, they're one of the more fascinating teams in the league to me.
Until Victor Wembanyama gets traded to the Lakers for 1 first-round pick, and Caitlin Clark winds up on the Sparks. Because
How dare you?
all right, guys, thanks for joining me. I appreciate you guys. I know you guys, it's late for you guys there on the East Coast. I appreciate you guys joining me. Thanks for putting in the work. This is a really good episode. Thanks to David Payne for producing this episode. I gave him very short notice because my life has been absolutely just a wreck of nonstop working this week, and I'm behind on everything. So I appreciate everybody's patience with that. You've got the Best Bets episode for Friday with Sean and Brian in your feed. You can go check that out. So make sure you get your best bets. Take a look at those. Monday morning, Future Jays. We'll take a look at all sorts of stuff, including a little bit of a teaser. Jim Turvey has got a miss the playoffs bet you are not going to want to miss. We're going to talk about it and break it down. It's a long number with a lot of zeros, and he's got the case. So you make sure to check that out. Follow Sean Little on Twitter at Chicago Flow. Brian Fonseca on Twitter and Blue Sky at Brian Fonseca MY. Brandon Anderson at Wheaton Brando. Check out my analysis on the Action Network. We'll see you guys again next time.
The Eagles on the right side.
Fuck off. Let's get buckets.